Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start by approving the agenda. Now,
I have
there's
some corrections. Yep, I have some additions. Yep. Underneath the, here, let me pull it up on screen. Sorry. Share. Okay. Under the consent agenda, under our personnel actions, I've added this section at the bottom here under Auditor Treasurer. We received Friday evening a resignation from one of our new employees. And so looking to accept that resignation and initiate a competitive search to refill that position. And I've also added in the Auditor Treasurer during our discussion items. She's got a financial update for the board on a number of items. So those are the, unless anybody else has any other changes, those are what I have.
Okay. If there's no other changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
I'll second it.
I do question, this is going to be for John, the new hires in the human services that is on there under the consent.
Would you want to pull them out, Bob? Is that what you're saying? Or
Well, I want to know if these are new hires or if these are hires that are replacing somebody that's left.
They're both replacements.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
Okay.
Jack?
Well, I'll wait till we get to the consent agenda.
Okay, yeah, this is just to approve the agenda, not the consent
Yeah.
agenda. So,
Yeah.
yep. Okay, we've had a motion and a second. We'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes,
4,
Yes,
and 5.
Yep.
Amended agenda approved.
Let's move forward with the approval of previous minutes from August 26th board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
second.
Motion's been made and second. Is there any other discussion or additions or corrections? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes,
4,
Yes,
5.
Yep.
Now we'll do September 1st workshop minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the workshop minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
If no further discussion, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
yes,
4,
Yes,
and 5.
Yes.
Passes.
Public comment. Is there anybody that wishes to have a public comment? If not, we'll proceed with the COVID-19 update from Public Health. Heather, are you doing that today?
Yeah, I'll start that, and John, feel free to jump in. Good morning, commissioners. We've continued to be busy with COVID stuff. We're trying to provide you with those updates Monday through Friday, and taking a little downtime on the weekend. But one thing that continues to be a challenge is MEDS, which stands for the Minnesota Electronic Disease Surveillance System. That's where all the COVID cases are kind of logged. And so when there are discrepancies, it can take some time. Audrey spends a lot of time looking at those cases because we often get assigned cases from Hennepin County because Hennepin and Houston are close together in the alphabet. They're, I think, County 27 and we're County 28. So every case that gets assigned to us that's not our case does impact our numbers and what our schools look at. So it's really important to look at those cases very carefully because it does impact what our 14-day rolling case rate would be. And there's other ones from neighboring counties that end up getting put into ours. So Audrey does spend a fair amount of time going through that. So that's kind of an important piece of it. Meds is also the component, what we use to do our case investigation and contact tracing. So that continues to be kind of a time-consuming process for us. And just communicating with schools and businesses and the like, our border counties, that's a really important piece of that, to just get a feel for what those contacts were, so we can be sure our residents are making, the most informed decisions that they can to protect themselves and others around them. And schools, I wowould say, is where we're spending a lot of time. Audrey spends a lot of time on schools right now because, as we know, Caledonia is back in session this week. The rest of the schools will either be back, I think most in hybrid or whatever learning model that they're in. And they've taken a lot of time and effort and consideration into planning what that's going to look like for them. So we've been grateful to be a partner at the table and help them kind of navigate that process so they can have the right precautions in place and hopefully keep students and staff as safe as possible. So John, do you have anything you want to add, or if there's any questions from?
Word on that work that we're doing with the schools. Perhaps you've seen there's this 14-day rolling window, and given the challenges with meds data, you've seen our numbers bob around sometimes. Sometimes we'll say, hey, we got 2 cases, and then revise that. Nope, actually we've got 1, or no, actually we've got 3. The community sees that too, because that's all posted on the situational update with MDH. The additional problem is that the 14-day rate is established with not the date that it goes on meds, but it's on the date that the sample was taken. And the only place that information is available is on meds. So our school districts are trying to make decisions using data that, it's a 14-day rolling window and it's 2 weeks back. And Audrey's done a really nice job in putting together a projection tool using the data that actually feeds that 14-day rate, because some decision makers, superintendents, school board members are looking at the number of cases we've received that they see through the situational update that is published. And they're trying to figure out where that, what that rate will be in the next 2 weeks and into the coming 2 weeks. And their numbers are wildly inaccurate because the numbers feeding the 14-day thing come off of the date that the sample was taken. And sometimes there's as much as 5 to 7 days between when the sample's taken and when there's a positive test. So a lot of detail, but to sum up, the work that Audrey's done on that, I think, has given our local superintendents a much more reliable projection tool, so that as they see cases happening in real time, they have a truer view of what that 14-day window is going to look like as the next one comes and as they're projecting and making plans for coming weeks. The Minnesota Department of Education has also encouraged schools not to close down and open up and close and open. And so they're really in a challenged position to have adequate learning models in place and some degree of predictability for families and students. And so I just wanted to highlight that, that projection model that Audrey worked on and developed, there wasn't anything like that anywhere else. So MDH is working with her now to refine that model, and it's kind of being implemented in a more broad sense.
Well, I'd like to commend Audrey for coming up with that. I mean, she's trying to make it more realistic and more, something more useful than what we've had. So I commend her for doing that, and all you guys, you're trying to do the best job you can and have accurate and real information, and it's pretty hard to do from what I can see.
Yeah, I think she was probably doing the same thing that schools or superintendents were doing, and it's like these numbers aren't adding up. It's not making sense. She'd compare what she'd see in the state numbers, and they weren't matching what the 14-day window was.
Yeah.
So she did more digging, figured out what it was, and then developed a more accurate projection tool for them.
Jack?
As far as like Caledonia opening school, if by chance there's a spike in school-age children after the school opening, whose call is it to either close or change the direction? Is that the school system itself or the state get involved, or?
To begin with, Heather, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm certain that, that isn't the decision that we are involved in. It's school boards and school administration making those decisions on a district by district basis. If there was some strong disagreement between the Department of Education or Department of Health and a specific school district, perhaps they would intervene. But I think what we see with our schools is they just are craving more accurate and real-time information so that they can make responsible decisions. So our role is more from a consulting perspective with those school district partners.
Is Caledonia the only school that opened totally, and the rest are all hybrid models with the 2 days on and web learning?
That's my understanding. I believe Caledonia opened K-12 face-to-face in person. Granted, they started 2 weeks earlier than the others, so they kind of, I don't know, we're the guinea pig perhaps, but I believe the other schools are, I don't know specifics because something could have changed, but I think it's more of the hybrid model, and perhaps face-to-face in the younger elementary grades. And just to piggyback additional off of what John mentioned, yes, it is the district administration that would make that decision, but schools have 5 days to transition from one learning model to the next. So if they were to change, if they saw on the rolling case rate came out on a Thursday, they don't have to change their learning model for that next day on Friday. They have 5 days to kind of make that transition for students, which is nice because with the projection model that Audrey developed within those 5 days, we can provide the schools with even more information about what that next week is going to look like, if we're going to see it stay the same, if we're going to see it go down. So again, we're just trying to provide schools with as much information as we can to inform their decision. They're right now tasked with making some really difficult decisions. So we're just trying to do what we can to have it be as up to date as possible. Yes, Jack.
Yeah, just a comment that this has a potential for a real mess as far as parents are concerned. If suddenly, next week we're not going to be doing this, we'll be doing that. And then, the whole childcare issue certainly going to be a challenge.
Well, I hope this thing that Audrey has come up with and developed, it'll prevent them from making knee-jerk reactions and have better information to kind of stick with the plan as they see fit, as long as things don't get out of control. I'm impressed that you guys have worked on this and done this to help the schools, because they're in a tough position.
So has Caledonia seen any, with being open for 2 weeks, have they seen any changes in 2 weeks?
I can't speak to the school itself. We're certainly tracking the cases within the county because the 14-day case rate is county level data. but to go off of, and right now they are still face to face, yes, this week as well. And Jack, going off what you said, it can be a difficult situation for some parents. That's why in some of those learning models, they try to keep the elementary, they're the last to go virtual because the importance of that face-to-face interaction. But yes, it could be an impact on families, certainly.
Maybe we should change that to mask, not face to face. That would.
Yeah, maybe more accurate.
So is there any free testing at all in Houston County? Or where do people go to get tested, or they don't have to go through their doctor or something like that?
There are no testing sites available in Houston County. All testing for Houston County residents is outside of the county. Most of it is being done across the river in La Crosse at either Gunderson or Mayo. And there's no site available.
Okay.
Do you want to add any?
We've initiated conversations with them about that, and they just feel that they can meet the demand with the sites that they have across the river. So it's certainly an ongoing topic of conversation, and we kind of circle that back to really drive home the need for our residents to have access. So it's not a silent, I think we're remaining silent on, but we really need to be engaged with our healthcare partners to ensure that our residents have access to testing.
Well,
So-
they test in Winona Health too, don't they?
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
So we've got a small portion of folks who are tested in Winona, and maybe a small portion in Iowa at Winneshiek. I'm glad Heather said what she did, because this has been an ongoing topic of conversation with the Department of Health as well as our partners. I think too, to clarify the question or our response, if you are saying are free tests available for asymptomatic people, they aren't available to my knowledge really anywhere in the region. If you are symptomatic, then those folks, for the most part, from what I'm being told, those folks are getting tested once they have symptoms. So consistent with our messaging, if you have symptoms, seek out health care from your healthcare provider and follow their directions. And if they say get a test, do. But it's hard to get a test right now if you are asymptomatic. Would you say that's accurate, Heather?
Yes, that's accurate.
So if you're in contact with somebody that has been tested positive, that doesn't count. You have to have a symptom yourself.
Yeah, we've been working with our healthcare partners across the river, and in certain circumstances, say somebody is working in a long-term care facility, but they were confirmed contact based on the definition of within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And then that additional risk factor that their job is caring for people in a long-term care facility, or maybe they have a child care facility or something like that. But just being a confirmed contact of a confirmed lab tested case isn't enough. We've had that conversation pretty vigorously with our friends across the river. They're in the same boat. They're not testing those folks either. It's a capacity issue.
Oh.
Sometimes it's a capacity as far as staffing. Sometimes it's a capacity as far as test components, because we've seen fluctuation in the amount of time it takes to get a test and have the results back. Sometimes they're really pretty quick, and sometimes it could be days. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Not what you were looking for, though.
No.
I hear you. I'm glad Heather mentioned it, because we've had multiple conversations with Mayo, with Gunderson, with folks from the state of Wisconsin, and certainly folks from Minnesota Department of Health. I don't want to make in any way it sound like those folks aren't doing their job. They are. They're they're inundated. And so I think it's important that we work with our partners in those healthcare providers, and we've got solid relationships there, due largely to the work that Heather has done over years of working with those partners, as well as now Audrey.
So you need that darn fever.
Yes, you do.
Well, hopefully you don't have a fever and you don't need a test. So,
That'd be better still.
yep.
Yeah, John Heather talked about the numbers locally. I just wanted to kind of point out that we are pretty lucky still with some low numbers surrounding us. Winona has 597 cases. Mower County has over 1,200 cases now. Olmsted County has over 2,000, but between Fillmore with 88 and us with 89 cases on the thing, we're still sitting pretty lucky, but it's all around.
Yeah, all the counties that border us, I've been tracking that over time. They all have significantly more cases.
Can we put up a fence around us?
That might cause some issues with people going to and from work.
Yeah, that's true, especially in La Crescent.
Yeah.
I got one question for you, John.
Yes.
So let's say I was out and I talked to somebody over the weekend and he was exposed, he'd had COVID, and now he's okay. So what if I go and tell my boss that I was exposed and I need 14 days off? You can't do that, can you?
You know, that's kind of an interesting thing, because we've seen both sides of that, where somebody's identified. You know, we do the case investigation, and then we also do contact tracing. So say I contacted you as a contact, and you've been within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes within a certain date range, and you know, our recommendation to you is you need to isolate for 14 days. MDH says that you isolate for 14 days whether you get a test or not, but that causes issues between you and your employer. The other thing that you're suggesting is somebody says, well, I was at some place where somebody had COVID and they've determined themselves to be a contact, and they're telling their employer that they need to isolate for that period of time. What we say is, there are people we've even had people who think they've had COVID, but they aren't a confirmed case. And there are people who think they are a contact, but they haven't been identified as a contact based on the criteria that we get from MDH. If somebody is a confirmed contact, the guidance is that they isolate for 14 days.
Do they have to
Does
prove
that help?
do they have to prove their contact to make sure he had it?
I guess that would,
Go ahead, John.
I guess that would depend on the employer. If the employer has a protocol for, you need to, kind of like if you're going to have an extended absence because you have a bad case of the flu or whatever, many employers will say, we need to have something in writing that says that you need to be out for this period of time.
Mhm.
And depending on what their leave is and how they're managing CARES Act stuff and different types of leave categories, that's really dependent on the employer.
But I would also just say, Greg, to add an additional layer to that, if it's through our office and if someone is identified as a contact and being, strongly encouraged to quarantine at home for 14 days, if they then, contact their employer, they would be able to contact our office, Audrey, namely, and say, hey, I just need verification that I am a contact. We could potentially provide that individual with a letter because we've had communication with them, and then they can, if they want to communicate that health information to their employer, that they can certainly do that, because we have verbal communication with them with a phone call that they would need to quarantine for 14 days. If they do, we haven't, to my knowledge, had to do that as of yet. I think most employers, if you feel like you've been a contact, they don't want that in their workplace, but if we had to cross that bridge, we would probably provide the individual with some sort of documentation saying they were identified as a contact and encouraged to quarantine at home. And then that way the individual can share that if they so choose to. We would not be in the position of sharing someone's health information.
One of the issues we've had too, Greg, is that employees will reach out to us, not ours, but other employees. And the protocol with their employer is that they need to have a negative test before they can go back to work. So they contact us to see if we can somehow leverage an asymptomatic test. And that doesn't work. And it's hard on those folks, because if their employer has a policy of them needing to have a negative test before they can come back to work, they're kind of stuck.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you, John and Heather. Keep up the good work. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. Everybody has a chance to look at it. There's those additions from the auditor's office.
That's where I have a question. I guess before we do another job search, I guess I'd like some explanation for what happened here. We had discussed closing the office until some training was done to ease a person into the position. Did we do that, or did we just throw her into the fire? Or I need some background here.
No, and in fact, we have been turning away appointments on a rolling basis. We have had the 2 new employees. All of their background information was submitted to the state before they could get onto the state system for issuing driver's licenses. The state had to do a background check on them, and my understanding was we were still waiting on that, so they were still not able to do any driver's license appointments. They had been trained in how to do the license and tabs and had been performing those actions. So it's been kind of a rolling process of only opening up to the services that they were, able to perform.
Yes, and that's correct. We have not got any background checks back yet. We submitted them immediately. In fact, it's going on 1 month since Nikki did have her background check done, and we haven't heard anything as of today. I've contacted them several times. They had been doing some, lots of vehicle tabs, which both of them are quite familiar with, and also a lot of vehicle transfers, which, not too bad of work actually, but, as far as complex situations. But I think the individual just felt like at this time that it was maybe more of a complex job than was anticipated. And she just felt that before she goes any further, she just wanted to go back to her previous employer. And it wasn't anything real bad. It's just that, I think this job is a pretty complex job, and you need to know a lot of information. It's not just 1 or 2 things. It seems like every day there's a different scenario. No matter which way you turn, there's a lot of different situations in regards to vehicles, titles, and just lots of different situations, I guess.
So who do they go to with their questions?
The go-to with their questions. Well, that's another thing. It's the state. The state is not answering their phones at this time. They can get through only by email. And it's very, very difficult when that customer is standing right at the counter and they are trying, they're trying to get the answers, and they call and there's no answers, so they leave a message, and then they'll do an email, and the email, they're usually pretty good to get back to them, but it's not immediate as the person is standing there. So it's a difficult situation, very difficult. And because of the fact that the background checks, like Jeff said, they're not back yet. They are not allowed. They cannot start any driver's license And customers get frustrated, you know, but there's nothing we can do at this time until that background check comes back.
I guess then why don't we look at closing it down for 2 weeks?
Completely closing it down?
Yes.
Well, we don't have to do that, Jack. We can do like we have been doing the title transfers and stuff like that, but just not taking in appointments. Correct, Donna?
Correct. In fact, we were supposed to open up pretty much fully for driver's license on the 1st of, or actually today. And because of the fact that the checks didn't come back, we did go in and cancel those appointments and push them back until they're actually into October now, of course. So we did have to push those appointments back. And we've been telling people to, you know, by all means, if you want it done right away, you know, you can go to La Crescent or, you know, Preston and get taken care of. It's not like they can't get their transactions completed. They can go elsewhere if they'd like, if they needed to get it done right now.
Well, we need to start a search immediately and get someone to fill this position and
wait a month for a background check. And
hopefully not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing. I never thought it would take this long, and I pushed them through as soon as I possibly could. So,
Tess, you had something.
Yes. If the board approves moving forward with the search, I think the first steps that we will be doing is looking at, because we had such a recent search for this. Donna and I will go back and look at the pool of applicants that we had before we
That's fine.
spend money on going out on ads or anything. We will post it obviously internally as well in compliance with the ASME contract. But Donna, I'll meet with you later this afternoon.
okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. With the timing between Friday evening finding out about this and this morning, I wasn't sure. Didn't have a chance to talk to Tess and see if we had any leftovers from the initial search pool to consider.
So, Bob, do you have any more questions on the human services part?
No. I just wanted to know if they were new or replacement.
Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
No.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, now we'll proceed with action items. Action item number 1, consider Houston County Cares Business Relief Grant payments for round 1. Allison, are you on? Yes, you are.
I
There you are.
am. Good morning, commissioners.
Nice
Good morning.
background.
Thanks. So this morning we are going to be asking, the EDA board is going to be asking for that you guys approve 2 rounds of applications. But first I'm going to give just a really quick update on the Houston County Cares Business Relief Grant overall. So as you all know, the grant launched on August 14th. And then last week, the EDA board met and we reviewed the first round of applications through what we had received as of Tuesday, September 1st. So as of last week, we had received 126 applications, and there were 120 of those applications that the EDA board is recommending that you approve today from both the first and second round. So just an update, 126 applications were received in the first round of grant applications and funds still remain. The grant program has now been broadened to include more businesses. So eligible Houston County businesses include registered or licensed state businesses in good standing, nonprofits with a physical brick and mortar location and at least one paid employee, and sole proprietors who can provide a Schedule C tax return. So businesses, in order to be eligible for grant funds at this time, must provide one of the following with their grant application, and that is proof that the business is a state registered business and in good standing or licensed business, or proof of a nonprofit status or Schedule C for sole proprietors. So when we reviewed applications last Wednesday from round one, the EDA board felt that 97 applications should be approved by the Board of Commissioners for a total of $475,682 in grant funds. After that, the program was broadened, and the EDA board felt that in round two, another 23 applications that have been received as of September 1st should be approved. Those applications totaled $108,200, and the total dollar amount is $583,882. So just a little over half of the grant funds the EDA board is recommending that you approve. And if you do so today, those checks should be cut this Friday. So does anyone have any questions?
Bob?
So without using any names, if there's businesses in there with the same ownership and multiple aspects of the business, I mean, it's in the same location, same owner, but different pieces, is that looked at so there's no duplication of grant monies?
It is. So how we are determining that is you must provide a separate one of the following: proof that a business is, excuse me, proof that the business is state registered or licensed and in good standing, proof of a nonprofit status, or Schedule C for sole proprietors. So if you can provide proof, say that you have two different registered businesses, both would be eligible for the grant.
And then they turn in their expenses that create the reimbursement from the grant. So they, I mean, we know they aren't duplicating expenses from the one business.
So at this time, we are not actually requiring that they return in any expenses at this time. However, when you apply to the grant, you are signing something that says that you are aware that you may be audited. And it is very clear on the grant application that you cannot double dip with other CARES Act programs, and they do have to specify if they receive money from the county, where exactly they would use that money. So if they are audited and someone said, for example, we're using this money on our rent payments, we would say, show us your rent payments where you have used the money in that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't realize that we weren't referencing what the expenses were for. They just made an application, and if they're a business in good standing, they get it. They don't have to prove the need.
No, well, on the application itself, they are required to list kind of a broad category of where it falls into, whether it's an expense for rent, an expense for payroll, whether it is just a revenue replacement, or if it was, expense to modify their facility, et cetera. So it was some pretty broad categories that they were asked to list.
Yeah, there's a chart on the application, and so you fill out the chart and let us know how much you would use in each category, which you don't need to use them in all the categories, but you could if you wanted. So we know how they're using the county CARES money.
So basically, just to answer Bob's question, if one owner has 3 separate registered businesses, they qualify for each of the 3. So
Assuming those businesses are eligible, yes.
right.
Yeah, we defined it at the business level rather than the owner level. So
Correct.
So you can have 3, 4 businesses all under one.
if they are all under, now we had a case where we had one couple who owns a couple of businesses, but they run it through one business license. or sole proprietor. And so in which case that was treated as one business because they are not independently controlled and managed. We have another case where a gentleman owns, I think he had 3 different businesses. They're each independently managed. So there were 3 distinct businesses.
And that does seem to be clear on the application because businesses who maybe have more than one thing that they run out of one registration only applied once. So it was clear that they understood that.
I just wanted to say too that as EDA board, we looked at all these individual cases, and we feel very comfortable in the ones that are approved that they are legitimate and had good reasons and could use the money because of the COVID situation. So.
And we now that we have recipients, I will forward this to them, but they should all receive this now. We hadn't seen this before, but the IRS has put out guidance on CARES Act funds. And so if businesses are receiving CARES Act money, the IRS has addressed that they do need to report it as income and whatnot from a taxation perspective. So they've got, the recipients have a requirement to document it.
So Allison, do we then have the obligation of issuing 1099s?
No.
We'd have to check with the finance department and the auditors. I don't know for certain.
Carol?
We have not found anything that suggests that we need to do that.
Okay.
No, we have not. From any source that I've contacted.
Mhm.
But we do have the information readily available if we find out differently.
Well, usually if you got more than $600 or more, you got to issue the 1099, right, Carol?
It is $600, but this is a little bit different. It's not like a payment for service.
It's a grant.
It's it's kind of like a human services benefit recipient. We don't issue 1099s for, say, someone who's paid for foster care. We don't issue 1099s for like cash assistance. And this is more considered that type of payment.
Okay.
So far, they could change their mind.
If we don't issue anything and they don't report it, it's up to the IRS to figure it out.
Right.
Well, this has been a learning process too. We've learned some, and for businesses, I think it's a learning process too. Because if you're not registered with the state, you don't qualify for some of this stuff, and not everybody knows that. Now they're figuring this out, so you feel bad for the ones that didn't qualify. But what do you do? I mean, it's a tough call.
Yeah, the EDA board had some good discussions on, there's you can have a very small business and do the whole process and be an LLC, and you can have a pretty large business and be running it as a sole proprietor. And,
yeah,
when it comes down to it, which one's a quote unquote more legitimate business?
And that's why we changed the rules for the second round too. So,
yep.
But first we need to act on the first round of payments here.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
All right, District 1.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Passes.
All right, we'll proceed with round 2. Allison? I guess you've already went through some of that already.
Yep. So for round 2, there were 23 applications that we had received as of Tuesday, September 1st. They total $108,200. So that's what we're asking for the start of the second round, and then we'll continue on with that, of course.
How long does the second round go for, Allison?
The second round is going to be open until our October EDA meeting, which is October 7th. So applications should be turned in by Tuesday, October 6th at 5 p.m. in order to be considered for the second round.
And it's open now.
It's open now, yes. The advertising went out Friday for the second round.
Does that include nonprofits?
It includes nonprofits that have a physical brick and mortar and at least one paid employee. So some nonprofits are now included in the second round.
Any more questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the second round?
So move.
That was
Motion's,
Miller and Burns. Yep. Okay.
motion's been made and second. Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
and 5.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay. Thank you, Allison. You're doing great work, so we appreciate all your help.
Thank you. We've had some businesses that are looking forward to receiving their checks, and we've had really good feedback that this is really going to help them. So thank you guys too for
Yep.
doing this.
Yep. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to action item number 3. CUP for Joe and Lori Baldwin. Aaron, are you on?
He's not.
He is. Yep, there he is.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
The Planning Commission has recommended the granting of a conditional use permit for Joseph and Lori Baldwin for a cabin in an ag district. This is in Union Township. You've got the board packets provided to you. If you had any questions on those, I'd be happy to weigh in.
No questions? Okay.
There was no controversial issues with regard to this cabin. It met all the criteria required, correct?
Correct.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Bob, you want to specify your motion?
Move to approve the Baldwin's CUP application for a cabin?
And there was one condition recommended by the Planning Commission. Same condition that you're accustomed to seeing. The permittee shall comply with all federal, state, local laws and regulations.
So that's included in my,
I'm just asking, Bob,
Yep.
because it's going to get asked, so I'm just giving.
and I'll second all that.
What Bob meant to say.
Well, I think it's already been second, hasn't it?
Yeah, Commissioner Meyer seconded
Okay.
and re-seconded.
Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
3,
yes.
4,
Yes.
and 5.
Yes.
Now we'll move on to action item number 4, CUP for James and Audra Weiser.
Similar request to the prior one. This is for a cabin in an ag district. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of this permit with one condition. The condition being the same as the prior item. The permittee shall comply with all federal, state, local laws and regulations. You've got packets with information on this request. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
The same statement that was made before. There are no exceptions or any controversy with regard to this application.
Was not a contentious application, no. This one does sit at the bottom of a slope that, based on the elevation change, was determined to be not a bluff, but the location of it itself is also on flat ground.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve it with one stipulation.
Condition? Yep. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
and District 5.
Yes.
Passes.
And now we'll proceed with action item number number 5, sorry. Consider approving the CUP for Eric and Amy Wink, Caledonia Township, for a cabin. Aaron?
Same request as the prior two, application for a cabin in an ag district. In this case, the planning commission is forwarding a recommendation for denial. Because it was a denial, no consideration of conditions were discussed at the planning commission level. You've got the original packets as well as some modified packets prepared for you today. Be happy to answer any questions you would have on either of those.
Finding number 5, is that the reason why it was denied?
Correct. So the findings for a conditional use permit, as I understand them, require them all to be satisfied. Finding number 5 is a condition that the soil conditions are adequate to accommodate the proposed use, and the planning commission found that they were not.
So after we did this soil and water erosion plan, I think we can go ahead and okay this permit. And for overturning finding number 5, I guess a good reason would be due to an updated soil erosion plan done by the soil and the water. We make a recommendation to approve his permit.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
To clarify, that's a motion to update finding 5, not for full approval at this point. Correct?
Just finding number 5 for right now.
Okay, thank you.
Motion's been,
I've got a question on that. I know that you did a site visit, but I have not received any sort of updated plan. I guess I don't know. I did not know that there was one that already had been prepared. Is that correct?
Soil and water is working on it right now.
Okay, so they will make a plan. Okay.
They're gonna have a plan made up for him. And when he gets done with that plan, then they can submit it to you, Aaron, and then they can go on building.
So if I could say the wording of your motion would be that finding number 5 could be satisfied with the completion of a soil and water erosion plan.
I agree with that.
okay. Everybody's heard that motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded. Is there any more discussion? Go ahead, Bob.
With regard to the motion, the big argument here is that the slope is greater than 24%. The proper means of alleviating the question is to have a variance from the Board of Adjustment. Now, the county board can do whatever we want to from that perspective, but according to the ordinances and whatnot, you're not supposed to build on more than 24% slope. The variance would grant that because of the plan as far as erosion control plan. But are we overstepping and creating a situation, opening this door by going against the ordinance and allowing this to be overturned without going through the variance process?
Well, it was denied on an old picture from back in 2008. And I think with his updated soil and water conservation plan, I think that should be enough to overturn that, because It changed a lot in 12 years.
But the grade did not change. I mean, I was out there with Soil and Water when they shot elevations, and granted, it isn't with a permanent, I mean, they used the handheld device for determining grade, and they came out at 29% when you shoot from the front edge of the driveway 50 feet beyond the cabin, roughly 50 feet beyond the cabin, was a 29% grade. So that grade makes it a type 4 slope. And as I read it, it's supposed to be a variance from the, rather than the approval of the county board. Just my opinion.
Well, in the soil and the water conservation, they have retaining walls that they want put in and stuff. So I think if we went to a variance, they would do the same thing that we're doing.
I'm just talking about sequencing according to the ordinance. That's all I'm talking about.
Well, I've been out and looked at that site. I've seen the cabin. It's a fairly small cabin. I've seen deer blinds bigger than that. And the driveway approach is satisfactory with the Caledonia Township. There could be a little fixing up on the one side of it there. But the Caledonia Township feels comfortable with the issuing this permit. They have no objections. If he needs to follow the soil and waters conservation plan with the retaining walls on the driveway and behind the cabin. And no further building, I don't see a problem. But what we're deciding here is on the number 5 question of soil. So I think with the soil and water plan, it would be satisfactory.
But what we're going to say then for future reference is you can build on any slope you want if you get a soil and water.
No, well,
that's what we're doing.
They can disapprove that though too. The soil and water can say no. But if they think there's a possible way, I guess I'd go with the soil and water.
Well,
I think
wasn't there a problem to begin with the inception of this building?
Yeah, there was a little bit from the beginning.
I think Bob's point is the fact that we're bypassing the Board of Adjustment for the variance. We're approving number 5 without going through the Board of Adjustment. Is that correct, Bob?
Right. I mean,
And are we setting a precedent?
It's a process. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the cabin or the township approving it and the owner having gone through the process. I mean, he spent a lot of time and effort in trying to get this thing resolved. And I think we've all seen, the emails and whatnot with the questions and trying to get it squared away. He's doing homework for a long time on this. I'm just looking specifically at the way the ordinance reads as to the means to address something of this nature. The board can oversee, do this. It's just a question of the ordinance and following the ordinance, my opinion.
Bob, I think to split hairs on that, I think you guys can address the finding unrelated to that. When you go to recommend approval of the ordinance, that's when typically the
approval of the CUP, you mean?
Approval of the CUP, excuse me. When you go to approve the CUP, that's typically when the conditions get put in, and the variance could be one of those conditions. So I think to separate it out, first is addressing the findings, and then is addressing approval of the CUP.
That was just my concern.
Valid concern.
Any more questions? Motion's been made and seconded. We'll proceed with roll call.
All right, District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
No.
District 4,
No.
District 5.
Yes.
Finding 5 passes.
So commissioners, the other finding that I recommend that you look at this morning would be finding 1. The Planning Commission approved that finding, but the reasons they gave for approval were a conceived future variance request. So you wouldn't necessarily need to change what they found, but I would advise you to find if ultimately a variance wouldn't be sought here, to find a reason why that condition satisfied beyond that ultimately a variance will be sought. And that finding is that the proposed use conforms to the county land use plan.
Well, the county land use plan does allow for cabins, 1 cabin on a quarter. I mean.
Yep.
This has no problem as far as meeting the county's plan.
No.
Well, I don't think we need to do a variance because the Soil and Water is probably gonna have to come in and do that for them too before they're gonna approve anything, so.
I don't know if I understand that.
Because if this goes to the Board of Adjustment, they're gonna have to go to Soil and Water for their recommendations.
So you're saying the process would look the same with the Board of Adjustment as it is here this morning with you? Okay.
You're gonna end up with the same result.
Okay, so I guess I've heard 2 of you offer reasons there. Plan does not, or the comprehensive plan allows for 1 cabin per quarter, and a variance process would likely involve soil and water too. You're involving soil and water, so therefore there's no need to do the variance process. Generally, I'm just looking for at least 1 reason. You now have 2 reasons stated, so I would recommend some action to formalize those reasons.
Is there a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to finalize that.
With the 2 reasons given,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any more discussion?
Not for that.
If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
Sorry, District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Okay. Finding 1 affirmed with those 2 reasons. Passed.
So commissioners, now that you have findings that have been revisited and now reflect or are set to support a grant of the application, I would offer some conditions that you might consider on the permit. 5 conditions would be, I'll offer 5 conditions for your consideration. Number 1, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations, except as exempted below. So when we get to another condition here, we're going to exempt Mr. Wink from one local regulation. Condition number 2, this approval allows placement of the cabin and accessory shed on slopes of 29% and supplants the need for a variance. So that's the exception that we've built into number 1 there, saying that local rule does not apply to Mr. Wink. Number 3, the permittee must apply for and be granted a zoning permit for the placement of the cabin. The application fees for the zoning permit for the cabin shall be tripled, as an after-the-fact penalty. An erosion control plan shall be included with the application. So Commissioner Myrie, that's the soil and water involvement that you alluded to earlier. Condition number 4, a driveway has been constructed with slopes estimated at 15%. The driveway must be regraded to achieve slopes 12% or lower. Number 5, an accessory shed is included in this approval. If it is to be used as a privy, the permittee must complete required after-the-fact applications for the privy. Alternatively, I'm not reading the condition now, but alternatively, it could be converted into a garden shed, which has been proposed by the applicant. But your approval here, or your action this morning, would include the accessory structure that has also already been constructed. Any questions?
Aaron, do you want to spell out the fees?
Well, Mr. Wink's already paid his application fees for the conditional use hearing. Those were not tripled. What these conditions here would clarify is that we would not revisit any of the fees he's already paid for his hearing. However, we would apply a after the fact penalty on his zoning fee for the cabin. That fee would be calculated at 15 cents a square foot. Because it's an after the fact, we would then multiply that by 3. So I believe we're looking at around $150 instead of around $50, which it would have been without the after the fact.
Okay.
And
So
then there would be some fees associated with the privy as well if he goes that route.
Correct. Yeah.
Is there a motion to with these conditions attached?
Could you tell us the conditions one more time, please?
Certainly. Number 1, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations except as exempted below. Number 2, this approval allows placement of the cabin and accessory shed on slopes of 29% and supplants the need for a variance. Number 3, the permittee must apply for and be granted a zoning permit for the placement of the cabin. Application fees for the zoning permit for the cabin shall be tripled as an after-the-fact penalty. An erosion control plan shall be included with the application. Number 4, a driveway has been constructed with slopes estimated at 15%. The driveway must be regraded to achieve slopes 12% or lower. Number 5, an accessory shed is included in this approval. If it is to be used as a privy, the permittee must complete required after-the-fact applications for the privy. And I should also state that generally we do charge a fee for an erosion control plan, unless, as this reads now, that would not be triple, but we would charge our normal fee for an erosion control plan as part of the zoning approval.
Do we get charged from Soil and Water for that, or? Because Soil and Water is doing it, so who?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know that they charge us for that.
Okay. How much is that fee by the way?
It's not overwhelming. I believe it's based on the slope, and I think it ranges from $80 to $150. The steeper the slopes, the more expensive.
Okay.
Aaron, I have a question on, due to this situation, does your office put a little asterisk or something next to this so that there's follow-up? Because we have a number of issues here that need to be satisfied. Is somebody going to verify that they indeed are satisfied, or are we just going to let it slide by?
Well, with all the cabins that you approve, for instance, the other 2 this morning, they will all get zoning permits. So we would follow up on that end. In terms of the driveway regrading, that's generally something that we would work with folks on. So if Mr. Wink were to say, due to this reason or that reason, it's not practical for me to be able to achieve this immediately. However, I plan to do it next spring or something. We would generally work with them and follow up ultimately on the permit, we could ask for him to contact the office when construction is complete, and we could, issue a certificate of occupancy. Should we want to ensure that we're going to do a follow-up on it.
Any other questions?
Well, solid waste, they'll give you a plan, and when that's all finished, you'll have to bring it to you, Aaron. And then you know it's done.
You mean soil and water, Greg?
Well, water can bring the plan to Aaron and say he's done all his work that we recommended, and he can go ahead and finish his building.
Well, usually they put the plan together, and then the owner will put it into action. They typically don't. I mean, they prepare the plan before he does the work, and that's submitted with his zoning application.
Yeah, soil and water will have to get with him and get this all done and then report it back to you, Aaron.
Correct. Well, I guess what I'm trying to articulate is when you say get it all done, it means put together a plan on paper that soil and water is comfortable and can approve. It doesn't generally mean that.
And it's done in a reasonable time frame. Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to? Okay, Bob, you got something else.
Clarification to what I said, when Aaron asked the question about putting this cabin, is there any reason because of the county's comprehensive use plan? The use plan calls for cabins, allows for cabins, and that's all I was pertaining to. I didn't pertain to the slope or anything else. A cabin is allowed in the comprehensive use plan. I did not mean that I was saying that it supersedes the slope qualifications. A cabin's a cabin, and that's allowed in the plan. So that number 2, allowing it on the 29%, I wasn't alluding to that. I was just alluding to the fact that the comprehensive plan allows for cabins. It's the ordinance that dictates the grades and whatnot.
Yeah, number 2 is qualifying number 1, because otherwise we would create a situation that's essentially an oxymoron where number 1 says you must follow the rules.
Yep.
And then number 2 says you don't have to follow the rule.
Yep.
So that's why we're exempting it.
Yep.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the CUP with the conditions that we have on there.
Is there a motion's been made? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1.
As
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
I vote no on the basis of the variance requirement per the ordinance.
District 4.
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to action item number 6. Consider approving motion to remove Rich Shield and Wayne Feldmeyer from the Planning Commission and seek replacements. Jeff, you got any more info on this?
I was asked by the commissioners to put this on the agenda. There was some concern over comments made by those Planning Commission members in the last meeting. Commissioner Meyer, if you'd like to add as the board member of that commission.
Have you talked to Sam about it, or?
Yeah, it's from a legal perspective, all of the members of the Planning Commission serve at the pleasure of the board, and you're able to remove them as you wish to, with or without cause. If you wish to address it from a perspective of not being in line with the county's ethics policy, that would be an appropriate reason.
Go ahead, Greg. Greg, you wanted to say something? First,
Well, I just told them that the ethics and the swearing and all that, and it was just uncalled for. And if we keep letting them get away with this, I mean, it's gonna keep on going, and we're no better than they are if we let them get away with this. That's all I got to say.
Jack,
I'm just wondering, if we go ahead and approve this, what number can the planning commission function at? Is there a certain number of people that have to be on there?
We'd still have 5 people, so that would be enough for vote on if they had to until they replace somebody.
Yeah, the ordinance says 5 to 7
Okay,
members.
that was my question.
You know, I listened to the tape as Bob suggested, starting at 42 minutes. And I agree that it was very inappropriate. And I haven't seen him at other meetings, so I don't know if this is a regular thing that happens at every meeting, or if they were just very agitated and overreacted at this particular meeting. You know, it's really hard to get citizens to want to serve on our boards, and I would think it would be worth our time to not discipline them, but to center this action for this meeting and not remove them from the board, was my first feeling after listening. Well, I can see Greg is opposing that. I don't see the real justification to remove them. But I've only seen this one meeting.
I've seen them blow up one other time too.
Bob,
All right, I listened to the recording a couple of times. I heard one swear word in the recording. And I know there was some agitation as far as one of the members getting kind of loud and vocal. When I was on the board last year with Rich, typically he was pretty level-headed and not prejudgmental. Any of the other times he was pretty even-tempered and didn't get carried away as far as that's concerned. I think it's unfortunate that he had made a predetermination in this particular case and voted no on everything, because each item is an individual item in making the determination and voting no on principle in each case. So I'm not, it was not a very professional action as far as some of the meeting is concerned. But like I said, with Rich in his case, he has not exhibited that in the past when I was on the planning and zoning board.
May I speak as an applicant?
no, not at this time.
Okay.
I just want to say we've set precedents with this before on trying to remove somebody from the Board of Adjustment. And those reasons were for a judge ruling that this individual should have recused himself, and he did not. And it ended up costing the county thousands of dollars to do this all over again. And we attempted to remove this person, and it failed. And I think it failed, and I'm not trying to put any words in anybody else's mouth. If anybody disagrees with me, they can. Because this person had a chance to meet one-on-one with commissioners and also plead his case before the board why he shouldn't be removed. So we've already set a precedent on how this is conducted. Has either of these two gentlemen been approached to state their case or defend themselves? Jeff, I take that as a no.
No, and in fact, when I talked with Sam about if they should be or not, that's, I don't know if the previous action really sets precedent. There is nothing required in the ordinance for.
No, but I'm
hearing or
saying
anything, so.
fair is fair here. I mean, we had legitimate reason to dismiss this person, and it failed on a 3-2 vote.
Well, these two people targeted this one applicant. I mean, you can't let that keep going on. Maybe next week they might not like the guy and they're gonna target him and just do the same thing.
And I agree, Greg, that's wrong. They should not be doing that. I agree. I totally agree with what all the reasons are. I do. But what I'm saying is we need to be fair on how this was done, how the board has conducted this previously and what we're doing now. That's the only point I'm trying to make. If anybody has disagreement with that, they can surely say so.
I'm gonna make a motion to remove Richard Shields and Wayne Feldmeyer from the planning commission.
Is there a second to that? Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? I have to ask 3 times, I think.
Motion fails for lack of a second.
Motion fails for lack of a second.
I would recommend that if, I'm going back to what you said, Eric, earlier, as far as if they wanted to defend themselves or not before an action was taken, I would also recommend that if we do something about this, we do it individually, not both at the same time. One
No,
at a-
well, individually. I think they need to have a good talking to, and it's not just those two. I think there needs to be some updated or not updated, but a reminder of their training and what their role is in their capacity as members of the planning commission and also members of the board of adjustment. At that same night of those meetings on the board of adjustment, there was some individual from the board of adjustment who was making personal comments and feelings, and that did not pertain to the case, the issues at hand, and I don't think that was in line with what was supposed to be conducted too. So I think they need to be reminded what their role is, whether it's on the board of adjustment or whether it's on the planning commission, and to conduct themselves professionally. So
on that theme, then, could I recommend that yourself as the board chair and I jointly address both of those two boards at the beginning of the next meeting and just kind of have a refresher on decorum and process.
So you're just gonna slap their hands a little bit and let them go, huh?
I think that if our chair and our administrator can go to their next meeting and give them a little talk to about the professional actions of their boards.
And I will do that. I can do that. And I think and we need to make it clear that they are not to have, this whole meeting, the way it was conducted, it seemed predetermined, and there was seems to be some communication between the office and some members, and we can't let that happen.
Right.
So, but I have no proof of any of that. I just got that feeling from listening to it. So,
okay.
And Greg, like I said, it was wrong what they did. The way they conducted themselves was over the top, and they need to have a good talking to. And if it happens again,
Well,
they
it's
should be
gonna-
removed. They should be removed.
It should be now.
Okay.
I hear you.
Now, I have only listened to conversations and recommendations for removal, so I never listened to the tape, and I don't know where is it available that one can listen to it.
It's on our
the Board
website.
of, yep, it's on the website.
On the website?
Board of Adjustment recordings.
All right.
So Jack, you don't even know what we're talking about?
Well, yeah, I know exactly what we're talking about. I just haven't listened to the tape.
Oh, you haven't listened to it. Okay.
I'm just going by other people's evaluation of how they conducted themselves.
Okay.
Well, I will. If it's okay, I'd like to call these individuals individually and tell them our dissatisfaction of their performance, of their professionalism, and then we'll try to address it at their next meeting on how they were to conduct themselves. And I can talk to Sam about that too, and some of the pointers that we need to do. So
Okay.
if that's okay with everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Number 7. Tess, you have approved the motion to implement 7 banding position adjustments.
I sent a chart to the, along with the request of the positions that are impacted, and so I believe there's actually more than 7. Well, there's 7 classifications, but there's more than 7 positions as far as individuals. And I request that the board approves that at this time. If you have any questions, please feel free. I stand for your questions at this time.
Bob?
With regard to the banding and the different levels, if this is one person's opinion.
No, Gallagher and Associates operate as a team. And so I know 3 different individuals were involved in this, in that organization. The decision band method is basically to summarize it as a 3-step process. They look at, we have A through E banding here. That has to do with the overall decision-making level as far as department heads, or do you have supervisory roles? Are you line staff member, etc. The first number that you see in there, so for instance, let's say you have a D, that's a department head level. If you have the first number that appears after that, whether that is a 6, say for example, that is the level of accountability, control, who they advise, who they interact with, whether they their decisions, who they make recommendations to. And then there's a subgrade that is assigned that's after that, and that is the next, so let's say that's a 1, for instance, or a 2. That gets into level of complexity of the position, certifications required, education required, skill set required, and then what overarching that they look at the same time is the equity between positions within a department or a division, and the equity across the organization as a whole, the entire county. And then that sets the basis for what we report to the state in our comparative worth analysis and reporting that we do. But it is not just one individual. They look as a team, they look at the, if a performance analysis questionnaire was done by the employee, that is reviewed. If there are comments by the supervisor and or department head on that, those are reviewed. The job description, we do a position audit, if you will, here at the county level, which involves myself and the department heads, and then come up with an agreement as to what the job descriptions really are. Or should be. Those are all forwarded. All that material is then forwarded to the vendor. And if there's any questions that the Gallagher and their team has, I will recommend that they speak with the department head directly, and they have a two-way at that point. If it's not something that I could answer for them, but if it's details that I wouldn't know, I'd rather than me be the go-between, them have the direct conversation with the department head. So it's a multi-step process. It's a very detailed process. The whole purpose of this process is to, the key is to have a systematic, non-discriminatory job evaluation system, and that they have is objective. In other words, they try to put a quantitative measures to their valuation, and that it would stand up to scrutiny of all stakeholders, include the state, the taxpayers, the board, the employees, the unions. So that's just a bit of an overview.
I want to ask a question on the list that you gave. The bottom 5 people on there have gone down basically, or are redlined. And I've heard from one of the department heads that this is a real big concern with them to be redlined, that it could actually cause us to lose a number of employees because of that.
I haven't heard that we're going to lose a member of any employee. The redlining goes to their wage. We had a detailed discussion in Personnel and Human Service Committee this morning. I don't know which department that that comment came from, though. Red line goes to the wage. That's my recommendation, is not to lower their wage, but to keep their wage consistent with what it currently is until such time that their
banding changes.
New band catches, and band and grade that catches up to them. Now, I don't think, I think with as we move forward, this certainly has implications for their overall pay as far as how high they could go within that particular band. But as I also would tell people to keep in mind that as a matter of equity, that which is what the comp worth is all about, the comparative worth study that we report. It is how these positions relate to each other. And as we move forward with negotiations, and hopefully we'll take up the issue of a wage study, I don't think these pay grades will, they'll be in those boxes very long. They'll be moving through that pretty quickly. They aren't that far off.
No.
the question this morning in committee came up more or less as to why do we have downgrades? Well, we've had a couple of our positions go down prior to this recent group. I can't attest to how they were banded in the first place. I have looked for documentation. I've heard anecdotal information. But the documentation does not support the higher bands that they previously had. And certainly the analysis that we have, that's a detailed analysis in this process, doesn't support it.
I don't have any concerns with the top 11 people or whatever number it is, but I do have a problem with the bottom 5 being, and there again, I just got the information, some of it this morning, and with concerns. And
yeah.
Oh.
So when we, for instance, I suppose most of the concerns deal with C41 and C42s there, since those are the majority that are changing. Let me say that every C41, every C42 in the county, these positions were compared across the board. I support this recommendation strongly because I am confident in the process. And when I look to see that these C42, I'll give you an example. Typically, these are our supervisory positions. To give you a little perspective, looking at, you can, C41, for instance, is where we have our foremans, it's where we have our social workers. C42 is our supervisors, our deputies. And again, I would say it's important to keep in mind when they look at the subgrading between a 1 and a 2, that they are looking at the complexity of decision making and comparing that. They're looking at the requisite skills and comparing that. And they also, they do their, and the requisite certifications, the requisite license that may be required. That all goes into that area. And I think we had, and this is my opinion, we did have some inequities that I think this now corrects.
The inequity is going to be if we lose a couple, 3 people in one department and we get 1 application for job sites, we're going to have a 0 operational department.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're talking about highway, if you look at the wage grids, the only difference is at that step 3 level. The rest of them, the wages actually set on top of each other, are the same. I highly recommend I think we're gonna lose people if we do not get a wage study that has people, that is sound, that addresses the impact of disparate wages both within the county as well as external to the county.
I agree with the idea of a wage study, but I would personally think that those bottom 5 people who definitely are redlined or going down in their steps or whatever, wait till the wage study is completed. I just looking at, well, we can't bring up names, of course, but on the top half with the fiscal supervisor going up, and in the bottom from the same department, the health educator going down, it doesn't, I don't understand exactly why when it seems like they both are doing a very comparable job.
So commissioners, please keep in mind that these analyses are not based upon level of performance or persons that are in the position or anything else. It is based upon a neutral process that has, where they analyze the positions in detail based upon the job descriptions, based upon the self-reporting by the employee and their PAQ, if a PAQ is submitted, and based upon, in some cases, interactions with the department head, should the department head have questions or the organization have questions. The wage study is going to look at whether those positions, once they're classified, that's why we did the classification analysis and the classification study first, and we get those right, then the wage study takes those and does peer analysis. We look at the job descriptions in that peer wage study. Job descriptions have to be about 80%, not about, they look at 80% of the same duties in each job. I fear that if how we got to this place in the first place, the situation in the first place is interesting, and that those positions, they do not meet the criteria of the higher levels that they were being paid on. And I think redlining them is appropriate so that they don't go backwards, but I think we ought to have that our process has to be neutral in order to have integrity. And this was a very neutral process, and it's well documented, and there was a lot of information that was supplied to Gallagher and Associates. And it wasn't just one person going through the numbers. Now, previous to us going with Gallagher as a vendor, we had, there was just one individual. We didn't feel that his work was substantiated the decisions, the recommendations that were being made, and that it was inadequate. And we quit using that individual. We now, as in recent years, last several years, have used this Gallagher and Associates with the Arthur Anderson organization. I don't know what I would tell other employees who feel that their jobs didn't either stay the same, that somebody that should be in the same classification as them actually is in a higher class and is receiving potentially higher pay just because of, I just feel it's wrong. I don't know how else. It's wrong.
I would just mention that we thoroughly discussed this at personnel this morning, focusing really on one of the red line positions, but just to emphasize again, this is a position analysis. It's not a job evaluation, and it's entirely objective. And if we're going to have a process and say, well, we'll accept the good ones, but that somebody's going up a step, but if somebody is going down a step, oh no, that can't be right. That completely invalidates the process. And we haven't had over the years any conflicts with Gallagher that I'm aware of where, oh, they just are doing a terrible job, and it's just what it is. It's objective.
Now, over the years, they've put positions up, they've put positions down, they've come in the same. The majority of our positions stay the same. That's because they are, which is very reassuring. And when you do a comparative worth analysis, They look at hierarchy within the department as far as comparing all of these positions. They look at numerous factors. I've been very pleased with them, with the detail that they ask for. So, and going through our job descriptions and PAQs. I know when we did the sheriff's, some of the sheriff's positions, so this has been 2 or 3 years back. You know, the sheriff met with them and they, over the phone. I know recently another department head, John, met with them. You know, those are two-way conversations. They solicit information, they hear concerns, and then they do their analysis and their job. And as I said, I don't know how I go to other members of our employ and tell them that we aren't going to make these adjustments.
Well, I agree with what Jack said, that this is not a job evaluation. And I think we want to make it perfectly clear with the employees affected by this that please don't misinterpret it that this is something that you, something to do with your job performance. And it's not that. I guess it's the way I'm looking at this now is we either going to do this or we're just going to throw it out and not do it at all. That's the choice we got.
It is kind of a look at the job performance, because they're being paid on this scale and we're saying, now you should be down here because you don't do as much as
Yeah, but we're not going to do that, Bob. We're redlining it. They're not going to get a pay cut.
But they're not going to go up. They're not going to get a wage increase
until we do negotiations. Does this affect negotiations, Tess?
Well, I think if we don't take this forward, it will affect negotiations. But yes, I mean, we have an obligation in negotiations. We said we'd do a classification study to 2 units, and that's exactly where we are.
The 2 units being highway and public health, correct?
No, units being labor units.
I'm sorry.
AFSCME and
Labor units, and we've expanded it beyond that because we needed to, if we were to go down the path, well, we need to do that because all of our jobs need to be right rated. And so we've tried to plug away at this.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
and in fuller,
oh, I'm sorry, Jeff.
I was just going to say, in fuller context, Gallagher has, I mean, they've ultimately looked at all of our positions, but recently have looked at, I think it's 30 some positions that we've done in this recent banding study. And these
76 positions they've looked at recently in this banding study.
Yeah. And so they've affirmed that most of those are accurate, and these are the 7 band changes that they've recommended.
And some of them, we've had others that were completed earlier that we made the changes on already that the board did. Commissioners, I just want to restate, if performance pay, if the board wants to look at a performance pay option, and a couple of some counties I know, for Olmsted, for instance, has performance pay. That is bonus pay. That is a legitimate thing for the board to look at if you choose to do that at some point in time to develop that process. This isn't that process. This is actually a rating of the position and not anything to do with the performance in that position. And should the board want to look at that other performance pay option, we certainly can do that at some point in time.
Let's go back to what I said. It is a performance issue from the perspective that the employee that's being downgraded is being told that you're not doing as much as you were getting paid for. So you are less valuable to the county because you don't do as much work as what we were paying you for.
It's not how much work.
There is a performance aspect to this. My opinion, just my opinion.
We did hear concerns from the ones at the very bottom of the page, the redlined ones, with their concerns about their new rating going down, and concerns that, you know, I could get another job somewhere else and get a lot more money. It isn't even that money. It's like we're not appreciating the way they were at the rate they were and their title.
Can they get PERA and 11 holidays at another job too?
That was part of the discussion.
That a PERA that gets, well, never mind.
To me, it would be like looking at a school superintendent whose job description included bus supervision. And then it was evaluated and found that, and he's getting a pay stipulation for bus supervision. Then somebody comes in and evaluates it and finds out that he's not supervising the buses. So then you take away the pay that was given to him for supervising the buses. That's just, again, objective. There's no subjectivity to this. Nobody's saying, oh, this position, we've been watching him or her and he's not doing this or that. That has zero to do with it.
Greg, you wanted to say something?
Well, I don't think anybody's going to quit their jobs when they're working for the county, because everybody wants a job at the county. Nobody wants to quit it.
Then explain to me why we get one application for some of these positions. And, you know, years ago, you used to get piles of them now. And we lose people to private industry because of the job, because of the pay scale. I mean, we had applications for the highway department here recently that we had one application. We had 4 applications, 2 not qualified because they didn't have CDLs and other reasons.
Well, I think we're getting off topic here. This is not about salary and wages. This is about banding of the position.
It is about wages because they cannot go beyond what they're at until it gets caught up on whatever is negotiated. So it is about wages.
And I do think we need a wage study.
Absolutely.
And I think those differences will, a lot of what the concerns are that you're expressing, I think will be addressed through that.
And if we do a wage study, we need to have these bandings done, either the way they are or the way they're, or these new ones, correct? Is that?
Well, we'll give them what we have is what we would do. So it's my recommendation that the board approves this and that we move forward with that next item, item 8, which is the wage compensation study.
So the action item is to consider approving this banding process, banding position adjustments, 7 of them. Do we have a motion to do that?
So move.
Is there a second to that? Is there a second to this motion? Is there a second? Motion fails due to the lack of a second. So that means we are at the banding positions we're currently at, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
What question, what do you mean that we're currently at, that we just received?
The original banding positions, right, Tess?
Motion that, a failed motion would mean that the Gallagher recommendations are not approved. That's my understanding.
That's correct. Yep.
So there wasn't a second to the motion, so the motion failed.
Okay, we'll proceed to action item number 8. Consider approving contract with David Brown Associations for compensation study. Tess?
Yes, let me pull that up real quickly. We have a, just a moment. I have a request to approve a compensation study that would be in the amount of, and which includes wages and health benefits in the of peer counties and for some positions may include market. The fee for this is $21,750.
Is how much?
$21,750. Wage study alone is $2,500 less.
Yeah. For first perspective on things, when we first started looking at wage studies, most counties told us to estimate $40,000, $50,000 for one. DDA will be reusing some of the products that they've used in other recent wage studies, which is why the cost is down to 21.
Budget effect? Is it budgeted or is it not?
It was not originally budgeted, no.
No, it was discussed for the last 2 years, but it has that we would consider looking at that once we made sure that our did our job classification study.
I was under the assumption it was going to be around 19. So the final.
That is correct, Commissioner. That's without the when we first discussed it, I was asked to go back to see how much it would cost to do to clarify whether it'd be a full compensation or just a wage study. So the wage study itself was that is $2,500 less than this $21,750. This $2,500 was added to do a comparison of health benefits as part of a compensation package. I believe it was Commissioner Miller who asked that question.
Teresa?
I do agree with going ahead with a wage study and the compensation included, because we really need to find out where we stand, at least compared to counties our size for our employees. I think this is a very fair process. I would make a motion to go with a wage study and compensation package for $21,000.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob, second the motion. More discussion?
Where's the money gonna come from?
General fund. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Jack?
Well, if we're not accepting the bandings, why would we need a wage study?
Good question.
The wage study is going to tell us where we're at with surrounding entities, both private and governmental.
Now,
So
when
we're
you
going-
say surrounding, excuse me, Jack, when you
Yeah.
say surrounding, it's not going to be, it's going to be like counties that are in the same situation as we are. It's not going to be Olmsted or Winona, because they are surrounding counties, but we have not the tax base that they have, correct? So
Mhm.
it's going to be like counties throughout the state of Minnesota. I'm assuming. If I'm wrong, correct me on that.
So what DDA will come back with is a proposed set of peer counties, which will be brought to the board for approval
So again,
or change or modification.
okay, back to the banding. So we're not accepting the banding, but we're going to compare to another county that accepted the banding. Should be a little confusing, right?
I think these are two separate issues, aren't they? The wage study and the bandings. I think we need a wage study. We haven't had one for years and we've talked about it. And I did go to the DDA at AMC conference last December, and it explained a lot of how it helps us find our peer counties and if we're in the ballpark with where we're at.
So we're only going to compare to counties and not to the private sector?
Jack, part of the contract is they will come and meet with us and have that discussion on what the appropriate comparison is. And so that will primarily be other like-sized counties, but they will adjust, as I understand it anyway, adjust that a bit to fit our market. And that's why we can't just cut and paste another county's final product.
Well, isn't this something we could do on our own?
I don't believe we have the resources to do it on our own.
And again, I think like our positions, this is something you would want an independent look at. You don't necessarily want, me saying, I think my pay should be this and it's based on this. You would want an independent look on that versus us doing it internally.
And if we do the pay study, we can always go back and readdress the banding. Pay study would be based on the current banding to see where we're at. We can always go back and accept the banding study that we've got, that we received.
It's a different process, but yes, I think that would be wise at some point to make sure that our positions are appropriately classified. It's very important, I believe, in many ways that they are, especially when it comes to filling out the state report that includes both the points for the classification level as well as the compensation the person's receiving. So that would be important, I think, to look at that and take a look at that, Commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm told that DDA will be able, because of some work that they have already done with neighboring counties, they've done quite a few rural or outstate counties, that they will be able to complete this survey and that they do this process and within a reasonable time period once it's approved for them to get going.
So they
And
should be able.
that being, they say 2 to 3 weeks. Well, I think a month is probably more like it.
So if that's the case, then they shouldn't need to charge that much.
Well, they normally charge, I believe, a lot more.
Oh,
That's already been taken into consideration,
Yes,
okay.
it has.
unfortunately.
They, of all these peer counties that we determine, whatever those peer counties will be, they take into consideration the miles of road, the number, do a comparison of the ability for the county, the tax capacity, the level of complexity of some of the services we have, the size of our county, et cetera. And they do this comparison on key positions for all of these peers, and come back with multiple options for you for potential adoption and implementation.
So is it safe to say that the unions are looking to have this wage study done too? They would like to see that, or
As the, that's very safe to say. We've heard in previous negotiations from both NAPE and AFSCME. We've discussed it in recent negotiations with the 49ers. Yes, and the county's never had an analysis of its wage and compensation. I mean, maybe there are, maybe we overpay in some areas, maybe we underpay in others, maybe we're right on. Maybe our grids need adjusting for more difference to show the varying difference between the job classes. Some classes, maybe we have too much of a difference. But asking the question earlier whether market will impact this, there may be some positions that market does impact. Those would be some of your licensed positions where we recruit from across the state. But market wouldn't necessarily impact all of our positions, probably few, very few.
I still question, if we aren't paying people according to their correct banding, how can a wage study possibly be accurate?
well, the wage study would be conducted on the current banding that we have now. Correct?
Conducted on job descriptions, it would be conducted on job descriptions. However, if the person isn't in the right band, then you have a pay discrepancy that moves forward. But that's different. I understand the concern that the employees that see themselves as being redlined, that maybe this will be a gentler, I believe a lot gentler than what they think it is. But I would recommend that once everything is done, that, and these pay grades are set per the classifications. Like I said, they compare based on job descriptions, but then once to see if we're dealing apples to apples. But the grids are set up per classification, so I agree with Jack. They need to be accurate. But whether we make them accurate today or make them accurate in a month from now, after we have some more information, I guess 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Well, this is just a general statement, but Houston County here, we're in a tough position. We got to compete against La Crosse County, Winona County, somewhat Olmsted, not so much, but somewhat, plus the private industry. So, and the thing is that our tax base can't support a lot of big increases. It's tough, but I think we need to have this wage study just to get a good idea where we're at. I don't like to spending $21,000 to do it, but I think it would be a helpful tool in going forward.
Me too.
I thought at the last union negotiation meeting that it was mentioned that Fillmore's study was inclusive of Houston County.
Some of their positions, like I said, when those studies are done, they try to do job matches where 80% of, just say, let's say an HR director, 80% of my job has to job match the Fillmore job before they will consider looking to my position as a peer position. So for many of the positions, I'm sure there were good job matches, and for others, there may not have been. I don't have that detail.
So there's nothing from there that we can glean to lower the
I'm
cost.
sure they will glean quite a bit from that, but not all of it. So,
And again, I think they factored that into their price quote when you compare their price quote to the other one that we received. That was factored into their price quote.
and
You got more to add, Tess?
yeah, Commissioner Johnson, if I can just make one last just comment. It is, these two processes go hand in hand. One should not be a substitute, and that is our classification should not be a substitute for, as a mechanism for compensation adjustments. The appropriate mechanism for a compensation adjustments is a compensation study.
That's different.
Otherwise, they are different, and otherwise, when the pay equity report is submitted, it's submitted erroneously. I don't take that lightly. I don't say it lightly. I don't have any axe to grind or anything like that, but when I submit reports to the state, I like them to be accurate. And I just want to mention that I am not in disagreement with anything anyone has said regarding our current searches, that some of them have been on the lean side for various reasons. As far as applicants, I do think there are some compensation issues that we really need to address. But I would hope that the board addresses the equity portion of this as well.
Well, a motion's been made and seconded. We've had discussion. Is there any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
All right, District 1.
No.
District 2.
Yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
And District 5.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you, commissioners, for your time.
Okay, we'll move on to action item number 9. Consider approving up to $25,000 of CARES Act funds to replace west entrance door with a sliding entry door and a modified drop box.
I guess this is me as well, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Tess.
Well, our current door leaks like sieve. There's corrosion in the frame, and it does need replacing. We've got a quote for replacing that door, about $16,381 with a hands-free sliding door, makes it more handicapped accessible. Eventually, I think it would be good to put some external covering out there once we realign our parking lots to put a more protected access. In order to tie this in, there may be some electrician cost, as well as we need to hook it up with the current security system that we have through Banco. I've talked with Andy about this. That should not be problematic, should be a more minimum cost. The two lock boxes that we're talking about, I met with Donna, and I recommended that we have a separate lockbox for auditor treasurer's office, separate from the rest of the county, so that we had more security over the ballots and the election process, since a lot of ballots, I'm assuming, will be dropped off at that only her staff will have access to that. And then the rest of the county will have 2 matching boxes put out there. The reason for replacement of the other box is that we do have some concerns with water getting in it, and we've tried to put lips on top of it, so to speak, or a little ledge. We just really need to replace it with something more functional. And so we'll be doing that. I think the costs are going to come in, I would think, a lot well under the amount that's listed there.
How do we rationalize this for CARES money?
Oh, absolutely. So when we go through the CARES Act expenses, the 3 qualifiers or the 3 elements must be a necessary expense. And so I think I think we fit there. And it also has to be related to the COVID-19 environment. And so the rationale there is that it's related to it by providing greater access with a hands-free access to minimize a contact point. And of course, the drop boxes on the front help with social distancing and not having to come into the building to take care of those services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it would be justified to use that money for this. It'd be a pretty good example of what it could be used for.
Mm-hmm.
And we could push the replacement off for a while. I don't want to paint a picture that the whole thing is totally in total disrepair. It's not, but it is showing its wear. It'd be a good use of CARES money to make it hands-free. And because everybody who enters the building touches that door handle pretty much, or touches the handicap access pad. And so this would be a first line of defense, if you will, to minimize contamination.
I think the total price, as Tess walked through, is probably going to be closer to 20. I put 25 on there because at the time we don't have a final price on the electronics of connecting it into the system and the Dropbox prices. So,
and as you know, that until you get into a project, you really don't know exactly what some of those challenges might be. So there may be minimal cost, and that's what I'm expecting, but it's hard to tell because we're already wired.
Bob.
It was a great use of the CARES fund, and I move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? I just have a question to clear it up.
Mm-hmm.
There's been the term drop boxes versus lock boxes. It's the same thing, correct?
Lockbox, correct.
yeah, secure Dropbox, lockbox, yep.
Drop lock box. How's that? Okay.
Secure boxes.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that up. If there's no other discussion, we'll proceed with the roll call.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
Thank you. Bruce.
Thank you,
Okay.
Commissioners.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to discussion items, administrator updates.
Well, I'd actually turn the floor over first to our auditor treasurer. She's got some financial updates to run through with the board.
That's right. Yep, sorry. Donna.
Yes, hi, Commissioners.
Hello.
Okay, do you want me to put anything up on the screen at all? If you have any specific questions as to where would you like to start?
Oh yes, where to start?
At the top.
Maybe I can help. Maybe I can help you start. Okay. So the this large spreadsheet, the cash trial balance. Let's get that up. Should I try to share the screen here, or do you want to do it, Jeff? the trial balance.
It's easier if, well, I can bring it up here too, but if you'd like me to. It's easier if you're driving and talking, so
Oh, well, I can try it.
I'll give you a shot at it. How's that
Okay.
sound?
There you go. Okay. Can you see anything?
Yep, yep.
Really? Okay, because I can't. Well, all right. Let's take a look at the first of all, I went with July 31st because July 31st, August 31st would have been pretty tough to get to because we don't have all the final figures yet for that. So I went with July 31st. So the ending treasurer's cash trial balance at the end of the day was 18,986,654.02. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if you can see that I have certificates with Bremer Bank and Eitzen Bank. And I have 11 just local certificates basically that are coming due at different times. They have some maturities out there, which is nice. I've got some good interest rates right now on those. And they won't be called. They'll be there until they mature. So good thing for that. By the way, that's those certificates total $1,266,002.14. And then we get down to the negotiable certificates, which are multi-bank CDs and Wells Fargo and Raymond James. There's 26 of those currently right now. The average interest rate on those is right around 2.36%. And with those are the ones that we're finding that are being called. I don't have a whole lot more. I don't think that can be called. I think for the most part, the ones that have called are going to be called. I had a sheet that I will go to next year that show the certificates that were called. I know Mr. Johnson had a question in the last meeting that we had, how many were called. So we'll get to that here shortly. But with that said, these are the current ones. We've got 3,837,000 for certificates with brokers. And like I said, we got multi-bank, Raymond James, and Wells Fargo. And then moving on to the government securities, and these are bonds that we have. The current rate is, see, I've got actually 7 bonds right now. And we've got, the rates are shown here, and the average is right around 2.4%. So that's, not too bad. The due dates are shown on the column that says date matures there. They're nothing real soon, except for there's one that's, I gotta look at that one. I'm sorry, that might be an error.
Is everybody else's page changing, or am I the only one that's only looking at that first page?
Me too.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything change. And
Donna,
You'll have to scroll up, yeah.
yeah, Donna's got to scroll up. That's all.
I have a question on this page though. Maybe I don't know what I'm looking, but
okay.
Money market savings, there's a whole list of Bank of the West.
Yes.
And it's showing interest rate paid 0.00000. Is that true?
Okay, let's see. What's the number?
It's
Yeah.
010786897 PH.
Correct. That's public health. Those accounts, because of the fact that Bank of the West is allowing us to get credits for the amount of money we have in there, they won't allow me to have interest on my accounts. So the public health account that you're seeing there and the 1340, the top one there, Jack, that you see the 1340 with the
6.5 million.
Yep. Okay, those are I do not have interest on it because we get the credits that that actually offset our charges that the Bank of the West would charge us per month to have the services. So I have not been getting interest on that. And even if I did, it would probably be 0.10 anyway. So it's not too much of a loss, although the 6 million does, count up actually when we don't normally have that much money in there. But right now, I do, and the only other alternative would be to invest it or with a broker or try to speak with the bank or with Eitzen Bank, which, do you see the account listed 280754?
Mhm.
Okay, that is our money market savings at Eitzen. And we currently have 5,065,000 in there. That one is my go-to account if we need we need money for large projects or whatever the case may be. And I've got that's quite a bit of money in there right now at this time. I thought about maybe asking Eitzen if they wanted to consider letting me, invest a little bit more in there. They're kind of stringent about that. They don't really need the funds, so they don't, they don't necessarily want to.
Yep.
Are you seeing the screen move right now?
No.
You aren't. Okay, then I think we're Jeff, maybe you want to, because it's not really seem to be working here. So maybe you should just take over and I'll have you. Because
Okay.
You're not seeing it. So I'm going to get out of this one.
All right, turn your sharing off.
Okay.
And that's the pooled cash spreadsheet, correct?
I'm watching it on my phone, so I can see it.
All right, everybody else should be able to see it now. And
Okay, so let's scroll down. Right there. Okay. So the ones, the accounts I have highlighted is the 1340, the 2306, and the special account 280754. Those three accounts is where I got my ready cash available, more or less to use for whatever the needs may be for the county.
Okay.
Okay, question, Donna, are you saying for that almost $7 million,
Mhm.
that's cash that is available to you, but every time you take cash out, they're charging you a fee, is that correct?
You mean, are you talking about from just from the Bank of the West itself? The fees that are charged from there? Yes,
Yeah.
this is their main general fund, okay? So the 1340 is the account that every single check goes out of. Payroll, payroll is actually the 1274 account, but we transfer back and forth. So anyway, yeah, this account is where all our checks go through. And this is where all our checks get deposited into this account. This is the general fund account. And they do have offsetting charges. It depends on all the different fees. It depends on how much activity we have during the month, but they give us a breakdown, a report at the end of each month, and it tells how much of a balance I need to maintain to offset these charges.
Okay, let me just give a scenario. So in 1 month, that 6,500,000 could potentially go down to what?
Depends on how much money the county spends. Sometimes it goes down to a couple million. Right now we've still, right now we're building up tax money from second half taxes. So it is, at the end of July, we have the tax money in there. We also have some of the CARES Act money, that is in there right now. So that's where that CARES Act money is sitting as well.
Right. So now we just issued 500 and some $1,000 of payments that'll come out of there, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So, this goes up and down, and when Sheila gets money in from the highway department for projects, the money goes right into here. So, and then it won't be long before $1 million. Well, but see, right now, you got to remember now, this is July 31st. So like just last week, we put $1 million in there from the project. So then in about a week or so, maybe a couple weeks for sure, she'll take the $1 million back out again. So it's in and out, but for the most part, it's usually right around 4 million. It has been, but it does go up and down. And of course, payroll, every 2 weeks. So but it's been right around this amount for a while.
Do we get any interest on that, Donna?
No, not right now, we don't. And that's because, well, first of all, the rates are so low. Secondly, is because, as I explained, that Bank of the West
Yep.
doesn't allow me to get interest when we have accounts that we're using for, to offset the fees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, and then if you scroll down, Jeff,
Oh, hang on, I gotta get out of that.
Money market savings.
yeah, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page. Okay, see the listing of my actual investments. So that 10,958,491, that's the amount of money that's actually invested for the county of the amount that you see on top. So $10 million is invested in getting interest from that 18 million that you're seeing on the top part. So, but then it's being broke down, so you can see that Multibank has 2,787,000, Raymond James has 1,139,000, Wells Fargo has 600,000, and down the line.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. And then, is there any questions?
Why don't we have anything in merchants?
Because we kind of talked about that before, but the interest rates were far too low. I couldn't get any kind of interest, decent interest rates. So I pretty much went with, there was, the Eitzen Bank does offer the 5-year and with a 2.5-year renewable. And that was, I've done some pretty good things with that because if we do need the money, we can cash it in 2.5 years. And if we go up, we can pay it up one time. So those are the different features that are really good for as far as Eitzen goes. And of course, the brokers are definitely higher. The interest rates are higher when you go with the brokers, the Raymond James and the Multibank and the Wells Fargo.
Bank of the West pays us 0 interest.
Yep, because
Well,
we have all the money goes through there. The transactions, the amount of transactions that are funneled through there each month, they would have to charge if we didn't have the money in there to offset it. They've been really good. I have to say, we've gotten, during the first months of the year, we get really low because of there's no taxes coming in, the money's going out, we're paying things up. And we don't have much money in that account, and so we get charged. So they have been refunding it to us. We have not had one, just 0 amount of charges from Bank of the West for all of our services. So they've been working with me a lot in the past 4 or 5 years. I'm trying to eliminate any charges that we'd have to pay for the county. So, any other questions on this page?
No.
Okay, then let's go to the next tab, Jeff, Fund Investments. Okay, then scroll up, please. Okay. So as you can see, the fund investments are listed in different colors: Road and Bridge, Human Services, General Fund, Soil and Water, and Collaborative. And as you scroll down, you can see how they all are broken down. And this is completely separate from the General Fund, which you just saw on the pool cash on the first, I should say the pool cash on the first tab. It's an addition to that. So we have $3,135,078 for the fund investments, and broken down, as you can see, by the different accounts. So the first is Road and Bridge. They have 2 certificates right now. One's coming due on May of 23, and one's coming due on December of 24. The interest rates are listed 2.3 and 3.1 for a total of $198,000. And then the next group is their Eitzen Bank certificates, and they're coming due in January of 25 and March of 22. And the total is $194,000. And then we have the money market savings, which has $1,101,600 in there. And all the money market accounts and such are down, or at Eitzen Bank, are currently earning 0.60%, which is about 1.5% less than what it was a year ago. So we're not doing as well with the interest rates on that, but we still get something. Then we go down to the money market for Human Services of 2735, account number 2735. And they currently have 250,000 in there. They had a certificate and they decided to cash it in because they have been using some of their funds and transferring it back to the general fund. So they've been needing some funds. So they made the decision to cash that certificate in, and now they've thrown it in with their, excuse me, with their money market savings. So they have 250,000 in there. And then as you scroll down here, we've got the money market savings for the Recorder's Tech Fund, which is pretty much Sue's account. The EDA 4642, the EDA fund has 474,000 in there. Recorder's Compliance 106,191, and the check account 119,734. And then you have E911, that's 286,000 in there. So that's a total of 1,142,32, and those are separate accounts from our pool cash. And then we go down to the Soil and Water, and they have some savings accounts, and they take, well, the first one is the 8537, and that's pretty much stayed the same for a long time, 62,000 in there. That's pretty much their money. They send me emails, and if they need to transfer or whatever they're doing, they just give me the instruction, and I have to have it okayed by Jeff, and we transfer the money, and pretty much we just pretty much take care of their funds for them. But they have a total of $201,245.89. And then the collaborative account, number 3107, now has $50,000 in it, and I haven't done anything with that for quite a while either. So those accounts are what we have for the fund investments. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Yeah, what is the collaborative account?
That would be Loretta. She took care of that in public health. And I don't know, John Puglisa, are you on yet, or maybe Carol, you can, I mean, I've never.
It's the Family Services Collaborative where, you know, we get money from the state, it goes to the school districts.
Right.
It's specifically for that purpose. They have a board that goes through it. And just to note that the collaborative, Soil and Water, we only have their money because we're their fiscal agent. It's not like we have any control over any of their money.
Mm-hmm.
So they really probably shouldn't be printed on our report, or, you know.
I usually, I have
you
to
know,
show the
just
auditor.
to note that they're not ours. It's not our money.
Right. I usually put it together like this. I have to show the auditors. Other than that, and I like to keep track of it because they do transfer in and out, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So at the end of the year, we have the same balance. I have the same balance as they do, and they do ask for that, their balances at the end of the year too. So I like to keep it on this spreadsheet just so I can keep it all together. But no, we don't have any control over their money. The next spreadsheet would be the it's called my investment spreadsheet, where I have my certificates called and matured. You want to pull that up, Jeff, or do you guys have any questions on that one?
Is that the one titled January to December, or?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay, let me get that open then.
And normally we don't have nearly this many. There's probably about, you know, if I'm lucky, 1 or 2 called a year, if that. But I've had 13 certificates called this year and 4 matured. And the average rate of interest that we've had on those certificates have been like 2.28%. So as you can see, you know, the rates they don't look that high, but they're high enough to be called at this time because of the rates going down so low. You know, a new certificate now, a 2-3 year, you're lucky if you get 0.5%. So that's why they've been called. And usually when I purchase these, they have a call feature on them. Some don't, not all of them don't, but the ones I've had recently have. And a lot of times you can get a better interest rate at the time if you have the call feature on it, because you know, if you're lucky enough, it won't get called. But in this situation, they did because of the rates went way down. So hopefully, rates will go back, start going back up again. And, it's undetermined right now. So, but anyway, they've been called and I've been putting all these funds into the general fund. So as you can see, the certificate's called 1,194,000. Matured is 544,000. So the total called and matured have been 1,700,000. So that's another reason why the general fund, or that 1340 account, is probably a little on the higher side, is because these CDs have gone into this account. But that also factors into it. I've only reinvested a couple of them. As you can see, the rates, 0.5% and 1%. Wells Fargo does have a, if you don't have a 600,000 in the account, they'll charge you a fee. So I thought, well, we've got, I think, what was this one for 100,000? We had 500, so I thought I'll just put another 100 in. We won't get a charge from Wells Fargo. It's something they just started the last 3-4 years. So, and I just put another 100,000, we invest another 100,000. So now we won't have a fee at the end of the year. It's like $75 or something, but we don't like fees here at the county. So we don't, we do everything we possibly can to eliminate any kind of fees or extra charges. We don't take charges.
Must be kind of fun, Donna, to say, oh, I think I'll put 100,000 in here.
Well,
Yeah,
it's,
Jack, we do that all the time, right? I mean, I'll avoid that $10 fee. I'll just put in another $100,000. So
Yeah, sounds like our house. Yeah.
but anyway, it's for the most part, I think we're still sitting pretty decent as far as interest wise. I like I said, nobody knows what it's gonna be like at the beginning of the year. I wish we had a crystal ball to say, gosh, interest rates are going to go sky high. Let's save everything. Let's invest at a certain date, but nobody knows that. So we do the best we can. Does anybody have any other questions?
nope, sounds good.
Oh, and then did you guys see that cash book total sheet? I just do this. I don't know if you guys like it or not, but it kind of shows the cash total of what it's been in the past since 2015. It's so many different variations of what's going on, but
Well, that all depends on our
what's
the
really,
levy and
yeah.
Yep.
I don't care if you have anything to add to that. I don't know if there's just a whole big change really. Pretty much average.
We like it when it's, up higher there.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything, like the nice part about it is we balance, Carol's the IFS and the treasurer's cash does balance every day. So we're happy to know that. And the auditors are happy with that as well. So it makes both of us feel better, I guess, when we know we're both, every amount that I get in is the same as what she gets in. So that's good. Meaning Carol.
okay. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay. It's 12:15. We have to get moving. Administrator reports,
Well,
updates.
in light of that time, I will pass on updates. We do have a couple of committee meetings to get scheduled for budget review and then the soil and water, solid waste committee and stuff. So we'll get those scheduled and booked out.
This week yet, or?
Yeah, we'll try and get them in this week. I will be out Thursday, making our second attempt at taking Maya up to Duluth to start college. So, or at least live in college. She's started at home.
Okay. So, commissioner reports. I can start first just for a change of pace, but had a highway meeting here last week. Had the EDA meeting. The highway meeting, we just wanted to reiterate, try to clarify our wants and needs, and just to stress to keep the the budget to the 5.5 million if we could. And so we're working towards that goal, and we're going to have more meetings coming up here with Weezers and such. So
Eric, I'm trying to keep my schedule straight. What day did we meet for highway?
that was after our EDA meeting.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yep. Well, our EDA meeting, I mean, we used up a whole hour at least of that too. So, and
Thank you.
determined the first and second round qualifications. So that's all I got. Anything else? I'll go ahead. Go ahead. Who wants to go next?
I don't have too much. I had just a public health meeting. Some of us went to, 3 of us anyway. That was a short meeting too, for a change. So, and I know we're setting the levy in 2 weeks, correct? At our next board meeting, we have to set the levy, so we have to have those budget meetings on the last 2 departments, I believe, right, Jeff?
Yes, correct. We'll have those scheduled here.
We have to set the preliminary levy. Also, that's all. I really have.
Jack?
You gave my report, Eric. I was at the same meetings you were.
Okay.
I saw an email from Teresa about this afternoon. Are we doing?
Oh, I thought we were doing budget meetings like we did last Tuesday, this afternoon. That's why.
Okay, but they aren't scheduled yet.
No,
Okay.
I confused everybody on that one.
Okay. Bob or Greg?
Go ahead, Greg.
I just got one. Jeff, you sent me that email about the chloride. We have to have a hearing on switching fees.
Mhm.
What fees are you switching?
Well, if you want to add and change any fees, you have to have a public hearing. So if you want to add fees for the chloride service from the county, we need to go through the public hearing process. And so I'll get that scheduled and put in place.
Quite a bit of money. We could use that in our budget.
Anything else, Greg?
Well, we had a finance meeting there last Thursday afternoon. You want to talk about that, Bob, or?
You got the floor. Go ahead.
Well, we had public health and human resources, and everything looked pretty good. Actually, public health went under budget, so I think we're looking pretty good there until we get down to the final decisions.
Okay. Bob?
Ditto, I'm done.
Well, I just want to reiterate, getting back to the Eric Wink CUP process. I see he's got off the meeting, and I texted him to see if he would come back on, and he had to go to bed because he works night shifts. So I just wanted to express apology on behalf of Houston County on the way he was treated at that meeting. It wasn't right. It wasn't professional. So I just wanted to issue a public apology on that. And I will get in touch with him and do the same
Okay.
directly to him.
Yeah, Eric, I think that's fine that you do that. I guess I was going to say earlier, and I'll say now, though, that it's also a indication of follow the procedure. And I mean, this costs the county a lot of time and money because he didn't apply as he should have. So,
Well, it didn't really cost us.
well, soil and water is involved.
Well, then they get involved with that. What we're trying to do is avoid a costly situation down the road here. So
I understand, but that it's still, follow the procedure and things go much more smoothly.
okay. Anything else? Any public comment? I don't believe there's anybody else on. So do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, Bob, you.
Oh, peace out.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second the motion. Whatever.
I
All
missed-
right. Bob made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed with roll call.
District 1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5.
Yes.
Adjourned
All right.
at 12:21.